You are listening to BitsCast KE, conversations that matter to young people, bit by bit.
Mazungumzo ya kweli na jamii, uwezo kwa vijana, mabadiliko. Mazungumzo ya kweli na jamii, uwezo kwa vijana, mabadiliko.
Welcome back to BitsCast KE, conversations that matter to young people. This is season 2, episode 4, whereby we are talking about political demonstrations and young people. The protest after 2022 general elections were particularly significant as they reflect a deep-seated distrust of electoral processes among many young people. To many young people, this is something that has been happening for quite some time, and definitely we need answers. And to talk about this conversation, I'm joined today by a very amazing, interesting person by the name Mr. Okoth Opondo. And he will be introducing himself. I don't want to preempt things because he's a man of very few words, but a lot of things. Mr. Okoth Opondo, karibu sana.
Asante sana, and I'm so happy to be here.
Hata si tunashukuru sana. So, exactly, who is Mr. Okoth Opondo?
Opondo is a Kenyan and an African, a community mobilizer, the founder of a program called Camp D Voices, which is a national debating platform organizing young people to actually see some meaning in the debating clubs and debating societies in schools, and also helping them to organize debating tournaments and forums to discuss different issues. We had to do that because we found conversations are very important. And if we can learn to agree to disagree, then we are ready to move on as a country. So apart from that, I'm also a former candidate of parliamentary seat of Kibra 2019. I ran, I believe that time, as the youngest candidate, and had an experience of just not voting, but now that time around I was voting for myself, and also having an experience of meeting people and asking for votes and really getting to understand what people feel on the ground here.
Yeah, we do really appreciate the fact that you are also like a former, running candidate for the Kibra seat, a member of parliament, and equally just the founder of Camp D Voices. Basically, you create a space where people can debate and disagree to agree. Sure. And that is why we are having this conversation today. So before we jump into the conversation, it's a norm for us to get an interesting thing about the person we are hosting. So for you, what is the most interesting thing about you?
The most interesting thing about me is I hear people saying that, they love keeping certain pets. So some people love keeping dogs, some people love keeping cats, but I think I love snakes.
What?
And I think I once kept snakes when I was young. Then my dad told me that the environment around me will view me kama mchawi. So I had to stop. But I think in the future I'll still keep snakes. I like reptiles.
Oh, I'm even in shock because this is the first time I'm hearing someone saying they prefer a snake.
That is why it's the most interesting thing about me.
I think you should have said that is the most what is that word?
Disgusting?
Not disgusting, but it's a very weird concept. But of course, yeah, it's very also interesting that someone can view snakes as pet. As for me, I'll try and maintain a very, long distance with snakes.
Don't worry.
Yeah. So when getting into the conversation, demonstration is basically about governance and politics. Before you also even ran for, member of parliament in Kibra, what childhood experience made you understand that you wanted to end up in governance?
Wonderful. So I grew up, I was born in Siaya and started my education in Nairobi. Came to start my education in Nairobi, baby class nursery pre-unit. Went back to the countryside and did class 1 to 6 in Siaya again. Came back to Nairobi, finished in 97 and 8. Went back to Siaya to start Form 1. Came back to Nairobi, then finished high school here. So I've had an opportunity of seeing life from all sides. Life in rural, life in urban, life in boarding school, life in day school, life in informal settlements, and life in the posh areas because of the kind of people that we also, our classmates and the people that we were visiting. So one thing that I saw growing up were the levels of inequality. And I think when you talk about inequality, generally, you're just talking about distribution of resources. As a young person, sometimes you are in this house or you visit someone's, a classmate's house, and you're asking yourself, what am I doing wrong that these other people are doing right? But I think the greatest eye-opener was 2007, 2008 post-election violence. So there's this one day we woke up and we were told, you cannot play with so-and-so because they come from this community, so-and-so. You cannot go to this place because there's something happening. And I kept on asking myself all the time, why? Why are we as human beings getting to this point? Yeah. And as a huge fan of reggae, there's this gentleman that I like the most, Lucky Dube. In one of his songs, he says, if the cats and the dogs can learn to live together, and if the wild animals can coexist in the jungle, what is wrong with us as human beings? That it is not even about the races. I mean, black turning against black. Whenever we have challenges, we don't care. When COVID came, it chose nobody. Yeah. Whenever we had blood donation, for example, you don't care whose blood you have, whether it is from Kikuyu, Luo, or Luya, or Kamba, or Taita. Why is it that when it is about elections, we usually turn against each other? So that's why I said I wanted now to be a voice of change in this space. And that was just a beginning. Yeah. We are still going on with that journey.
Yeah, and basically you've mentioned about 2007 post-election violence that made you see there's a gap and also like a lot of inequalities. Now, I view this as a demonstration that turned wild and people started like killing each other. We all understand that. Now, jumping back to demonstration, you as a person, I understand you are a bit younger at that time in 2007. Have you ever been part of any demonstration? And what was the experience, if so?
I've been part of demonstrations before as an organizer and as a participant. Yes, I was part of organizing demonstrations in campus and also at my community. I think I've had an opportunity of joining demonstrations twice. And I don't think, I don't want to commit that I'll never join a demonstration, but if that is how demonstrations are done, then I don't see ourselves achieving anything with the kind of demonstration that we do, because in as much as, yes, the Constitution allows us to demonstrate, we have a right. But remember, you have a right and you also have a responsibility. Yeah. In the process of exercising your right, you must also know that someone else needs to enjoy their right. And that is now your responsibility, that as you enjoy your right, make sure that you are not interfering with other people's rights. If it's about demonstration and coming out to speak up, I don't see why it should involve killing each other, why it should involve
destroying property,
stopping children from going to school, destroying hospitals, destroying businesses. To me, that is not demonstration. That's now what we call vandalism, or it is more violence and robbery in broad daylight.
Yeah, and this leads me to my next question, basically, because you're telling us a story here about your story, how you joined, demonstrations and what it meant for you. Now, as a young person, what made you join a demonstration? Because these are the same reasons that are pushing a lot of youth to the streets, basically.
You started the show very well by recognizing the fact that there's a lot of mistrust. And if you remember well, there was a document that was published last year, but one called the BBI, Building Bridges Initiative. However controversial it was, when it was presented at Bomas of Kenya, among the key points, one point came out that young Kenyans do not trust anyone. They don't trust their teachers, their parents. They don't trust their employers. They don't trust anyone. And it's not just about young Kenyans. Kenyans in general do not trust anyone. And most important, they do not trust the politician. And who is the politician? Especially the member of parliament, the MC, the governor, the senator. These are the people that the same Kenyans have actually delegated their duties of representation to. If you don't trust such kind of people, then there's a problem, because you don't trust somebody you've surrendered your power of representation to. When we have the over 200 members of parliament sitting in that house, they are sitting there because the 54 million, the over 50 million Kenyans cannot sit in that house. So we've delegated our duties of representation to them. Now, when you don't trust them, that means we do not really believe in what they are able to exercise, or their representation that they should be doing to us. I joined a demonstration because I felt like things were not being done right. The first time I joined a demonstration was when a young boy who was studying, I think, in a university in the UK, came back to Kenya, And after an Arsenal and Manchester United match, somewhere I think in Line Saba, he was shot in the evening.
Yeah.
And now we had to come together as what we call KUKSA, the Kibra University Students and Colleges Association, to try and ask, was it wrong for someone to walk at night from watching a match? And where in the Constitution does it say that someone should never walk at night? The Constitution gives us the freedom of association and freedom of movement. It doesn't say anywhere. And I keep on asking myself all the time, because the police later on said that it was a mistake and it was a matter of an issue of mistaken identity. The moment you get a young person, for example, and you suspect him and he's not armed, what is wrong with arresting this person and going ahead and doing your investigation? So to me, that was the first time that I joined a demonstration. And the other time that I also joined a demonstration was when there were some kind of illegal demolitions by the government in my area, and we really wanted to know what was happening. Unfortunately, all those demonstrations never gave birth to anything.
And leading me to this question, you have joined 2 demonstrations. And from your perspective, and also like speaking for other young people, do demonstrations work?
Demonstrations work depending on what the agenda of the demonstration. Most of the achievements we have in this country are as a result of demonstration. If you are a student of history in the early 90s, even leading to the repeal of Section 2A that actually now gave birth to multi-party politics, it was a result of demonstration. Some of the politicians that we know today, the Raila Odinga, Mwai Kibaki, James Orengo, the late Martin Shikuku, and quite a number of them. These people pushed the government to a point that the late President Daniel Toroitich arap Moi had to say, I accept this, it will happen. Coming fast forward, even for us to have the constitution that we are now, the 2010 constitution, is a result of constructive demonstration. We've even seen when students in universities do demonstrations even to ask governments and to release money to support them in education. Sometimes we've seen people demonstrating that we want a bridge, we want some roads, we want some lights on these roads fixed. Demonstrations work. And I think to me, it is all about what is the motive of demonstration. But if the demonstration is not really clearly planned and there's no clear agenda for a demonstration, then I can tell you it will never lead to anything.
Yeah. Now, weighing on the advantages and equally disadvantages of demonstration, do we say we have like a room for demonstration, or we should be exploring other alternatives? And if we are exploring other alternatives, what are we exploring?
I think I still stick with demonstration, only that for a long time they've been demonized based on how they are done. Because, sometimes people, when you talk of demonstration, you talk of protest, you talk of the words like peaceful protest. All these things just fall under the word demonstration, because demonstration is actually just to demonstrate that there's a problem or to demonstrate that something is happening. We've seen people even sometimes doing like peace walks. Those are peace protests. When sometimes you just call the police and say, we want you to help us, protect us as we walk along this road. And what we are asking for, we want the period shaming to come to an end, for example, for our girls. We want decent living conditions, maybe for police officers or for students in campuses. We want this. All those are demonstrations. So there's no alternative demonstration. I think to me, the only thing that we should be talking about is now how maybe we need new ways of organizing demonstrations, because if it is always about the politicians, it will always be about political dialogues and people coming to the table to share. Like you rightly talked about the demonstration that followed the 2022 general elections.
Yeah.
The politicians who are leading these demonstrations told us it was about the cost of living.
Yeah.
But now look at what is happening. There are talks happening at Bomas. I'm asking myself, at whose expense are these talks? Because those people are not going to Bomas every day for free.
Yeah.
Kalonzo Musyoka leading and Kimani Ichung'wah leading this other side, and these other politicians. The question is, where is the common Mwananchi at that table, where the young people who are always called to show up at this during this demonstration? So while we want to agree that yes, it was about the people, but it is time to ask these difficult questions like, where are we in these conversations as common wananchi and as common youth of the country?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Now, from people demonstrating, we are seeing it's majorly because the government is not doing something.
Yes.
And we have seen quite a significant improvement in terms of the number of demonstration in the recent past. Now, this is something that we can use to predict the future and say, if anything goes wrong, people will demonstrate. Now, how should the government ensure that, number one, we have to be realistic. Demonstrations happen, students won't be going to school. Matatus won't be functioning, and this is our public transport, so people won't be going to jobs, and the economy is sluggish. Kenya's shilling comparing to $1 right now, it's really terrible. So how does the government again ensure that they listen to the common wananchi and prevent these demonstrations, which they really tie us in a situation whereby the economy is hard and everything is completely getting worse? Yeah.
Good question there. So there's something we are reminded all the time, that this in Kenya, which is a democracy, it is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And we are the people. Alex, you are the person, I am the person, we are the people. The Constitution of Kenya, for example, starts very well by stating that we, the people.
Yeah.
That means the Constitution exists because the people are there. And our rights are must always be actually taken care of for. But here's the thing. We owe each other responsibility. The government and the people. Now, in this case, you know what I mean by the government, in as much as we are part of that government, but now those representing us and the people. For me, if anything is to happen, because a lot of things are happening across the world, yes, there are problems which are as a result of our own doings here in the country. But we cannot also not run away from the fact that some other issues are also global. So, for example, COVID really strained different nations. We are told again, war in Ukraine also really affected what is happening here. But I really want to run away from that, because I think that is also just an issue of our own government not really being able to manage some of the things. So if you just allow me to divert a little bit, then I come back to your question. So here's one of the things that I still find a bit crazy. Africa as a continent has over 600,000, over 60% of arable land is in Africa. Yeah. Over 60% of any land that can be used for farming is in Africa. But then you still wonder why African nations are still there begging for food. We cannot be begging while we should be the producer. So at that point, I find like it is a problem of how our governments are managing what we have. For example, in Kenya, we know that Kenya is capable of producing maize for herself. We know that Kenya is capable of producing coffee, tea. Yeah. We were brought up when we were told that agriculture is the backbone of the country. I doubt if it is still the backbone of the country, because today, if you ask any young person, okay, we were told cotton is a cash crop. For example, pyrethrum is a cash crop. The question is, most people in Nairobi, do you even know how cotton looks like? Pyrethrum looks like, So I still feel like we need to start looking at how we can start producing food for ourselves, because all these demonstrations are tied to food. They are all tied to our stomach. If you can provide the basic, you can feed children in school, people in hospital, people at work, feed people at their homes, then you'll already be reducing that pressure that people are having, right? Yeah. So if at all we are talking about now, how then can the government handle? Now back to your question. One thing that I can urge anyone who is listening, whether you are running for office or you are planning to run for office, or you are sitting in an office, or you are a young person, let's promote participation, public participation in anything. Some of the taxes, for example, that we hear the government is passing, they make a lot of sense. Only that the way it is communicated is the problem. Yeah. Sometimes your local area leader thinks that this is what is good for you, while as a people, you have a different opinion. So he thinks or she thinks that you need a bridge, while what you need is a playing ground for children. He or she thinks that you need more roads, while what you need are lights for the already existing road. So if we can promote public participation, we want to see the president coming out, not in political rallies. We want to see him engaging more on talk shows, on conversation with the university students, with the community members. We want to see members of parliament doing this, governors doing this, so that as we hear of these billions which are being disbursed, the common mwananchi need to have a say on how this money is going to be used, on how this money is going to be raised. For example, you talk about you want to raise money via the housing levy, you want to raise money via this. The problem has never been about raising money from the people. The people are always concerned about how is that money going to be used. Alex, I'll tell you as a matter of fact, today you can even be taxed 100%. If my government today will explain to me that if you are earning, let's say 50,000, all the 50,000 is tax. But this is how I'm going to use your tax. Number one, there'll be a decent and free transport. There'll be free education. And you know what we mean by free education? Health will be accessible. Food will be there. Why will I refuse to be taxed? But as long as I'm taxed and you never see what is happening, people will always feel angered.
Yeah.
Yes.
True. And this is a very good conversation around demonstration and how it impacts young people basically from your lived experience. We understand that we cannot be able to complete all this discussion in just, one sitting. And as we wrap up this conversation, I just have two major last questions. And briefly, what is the role of young people towards bettering a better future, not only for themselves, but for the greater, of the country?
One of the things, if you look at the country right now, with over 50 million Kenyans, 70%, we are told, falls below 35 years. That means we are a very young population. And of course, generally even cutting across the continent, Africa is a very young continent by age, right? Young people have a role to play. We have, number one, to understand what is happening. We really have to understand how our communities are managed. Because you cannot come out to demonstrate if you do not know what you're demonstrating for. I want a situation where next time you meet a young person as Alex, or next time you call someone to this beautiful studio and ask them, why did you show up on the road? And they are able to explain. Not that you showed up on the road because Raila Odinga told you to show up on the road, or because William Ruto told you, or because Mudavadi or Martha Karua. It should now stop being about these people. Or even is about them, but we must also know why we are part of that demonstration. Number two, young people, we have another role of accountability. This is our money that is being used. We are the bosses. We are the ones paying these public officers, the people holding the office. It is our money and our parents' money. We have to hold them accountable. And to hold them accountable means that now we have to participate directly and get to understand how governance structure works, how the processes run, and how everything is done. But then thirdly, the other part that also is very important for us to know, that we also have a right to participate directly. Participating directly means that you should wake up, take a voter's card, participate as a voter. If where possible and you feel like things are not working well, Barack Obama reminded us that, you can pick a paper and collect signatures and push one person out. And if that is not possible, wait for election when it's coming and run for that seat yourself and mobilize people around you. The communities where we come from, young people are so organized, by the way. They are having their own football leagues, they are having their dancing clubs, they are having their chamas and everything. If we are able to organize ourselves in those spaces and say, because Alex or because Opondo or because Christine there or because whoever there is able to organize us into a football organization, into a dancing organization, why can't we trust these people, this person, then to lead us? Young people must now start believing that they can be led by one of their own. Because when you allow one of your own to lead you, it becomes so easy to point fingers at that person. And I also would like to insist, remember, politics is not about money. Do not push young people to give you money. Because again, if you push them to give you money, you'll never get any quality representation, because then you won't have any young people from your cycles leading you. So those are the three things I would like to remind any young person who is listening.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been a very great conversation from my end and also from the listener's side. Now, as we wind up this conversation, other people might want to contact you, to even have this conversation further. Where do they find you? Let's say on social media, or maybe if you have a website or so, how can they contact you to even, have the discussion around politics and governance?
Powerful. So I'm majorly active on Facebook. I had to run away from Twitter after finding myself at loggerheads with the government sometimes back. But I'll be starting, I think I'll be reviving my account again. But right now I'm operating mostly in Facebook as Okoth Opondo. Okoth Opondo, that is my name there. If you go there, you'll find it. You can reach out there, but also maybe through our programs, websites, like Camp D Voices. Camp D is CAMPDE Voices. As Camp D as one word and Voices another word. Also, just to let you know, we are running some interesting shows with young people. One of the shows we've launched recently is called Tuko Freshi. You can watch it on YouTube. It is a platform just like this one that also brings young people to talk about different issues concerning them in their communities. Of course, in a debating format.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's a wrap for this episode of Political Demonstrations. We hope you enjoyed the conversation with the incredible Okoth Opondo and found it both enlightening and engaging. BitsCast KE, conversation that matter to young people. Keep tuned. We are bringing you a lot of conversation around young people. It's a wrap.
Mazungumzo ya kweli na jamii, uwezo kwa vijana, mabadiliko